let's deal with, I hear my brothers, they talk about the struggle they're having with women.
Mhm.
I get it, definitely more than what I've ever had to deal with growing up. I've never had to deal with until I got much, 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 much older. Gross disrespect,
Mhm.
that I see coming, the attitudes, the mannerisms. I mean, I
Yeah.
see it. So it's not like that's something new. It's like
Bad.
what I'm
Yeah.
seeing now is like over the top ridiculous. I tell my partner, I say, every time I do a live or I talk to somebody, I said, I think my wife get happy because it's like, thank God I got you. You ain't them.
Hard, man. It's
but
harder to find quality. It's
it,
just
it
harder.
really, it really, really is. And
Yeah.
so I feel for my brothers.
Man.
I've been definitely B1, pro black, married black, deal with black, blah, blah, blah. And I had to tell one of my closest friends, like, I really just had to, like, dude, if you found somebody that don't look like you, I'll be the first one down the altar because I don't know what to freaking say. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's that thick. I've
Yeah.
had to take, I've taken my wife around, just like we just go to stores and it's like, okay, we're gonna do this ad hominem type of thing, and even she began to see it,
Yeah.
like, hey, I go through a line and look how this black woman treat me. I go to the same store, look how this white woman treat me. I mean, what, yeah,
Yep.
I'm 55, so I'm a stick with my own. But if I was 30, if I was 20, and the black girl cusses me out when I was a freshman in college, the white girl in my dorm trying to help me to pass a class, how do you navigate that? How do
Um.
and I think it's sad because in the 90s, a black woman can marry a white man, she was considered a hero. A black man date a white woman, he is crucified.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I don't understand that part. But then, like I said, I'm looking at a situation where, and it's offline as well as online. So I do see it in both worlds. The argument of, ladies, my brothers want to marry you, but this inner, I'm gonna do a video on that too. I don't like to use the epithet of the angry black woman, but thank God I found, and I'll put this on camera. I found this book, and it said The Death of the Angry Black Woman, and I'm about to actually do a video based on her book, because to me, there's a difference between I'm upset black woman because of what's going on sociologically around me. That I can get. That I can get, I can fight for. Hey, I got your back on that situation. Versus I just outright hate you because of choices I made, and then I hate the other man that won't come in and play Superman
Right.
to my bad choices and decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So now I just blame all men for it. It's layered. It's like this is crazy to me. And I give you a prime example. We love her. We're still using her as our service. The woman that we're going to get to be making our cups and different merchandise is a black woman owner. She's married, and in the month of DV month, I said, hey, I'll work with you. I said, I'll work with you as far as, you can speak to women. I said, I'm going to be speaking to men in this category. Now, mind you, this woman is older than me. And the first thing out of her mouth was, well, that's nice, but the numbers for women is higher than men. I said, whoa. I said, DV is DV. I said, second, that's not true. I said, the number is 50-50. Well, I've been doing DV for over 10, 15 years. And she literally had that argument. It angered me. My wife took me out the store, because I guess she saw it like on my face. And all I did was Google, and I said, this is CDC. Look at what it says in CDC. So we ain't gonna be talking about no other black group. no manosphere group. This is coming straight from the government. She looked at the numbers and I said, this is what angers me. It's like, is a refusal to believe that a woman can put their hands on a man. That's where the struggle comes. I want that platform where I don't mind advocating for men. So so that way, when everybody can understand, I advocate for men on this side,
Right.
trying to get women to see without them screaming about tone and this and that and what have you. Then is that push of, heck, I got daughters and my daughters are not acting, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
how do you do it when your own children aren't acting this way, but it's happening in society this way?
It's this goes back to culture. Culture can evolve. Culture evolves, and you have the choice of, the strongest culture prevails. What happens is Black people are living in American culture, so we've assimilated to a lot of American white Eurocentric ways, right? That's just what it is.
Right.
People talk about their standard of beauty and blase and how they do this. Yeah, but you have to choose and accept that. People say, well, it's forced on you. No, it's not. It's that your mental fortitude or your ability to prevent the assimilation of that. That's on us as a group. You can complain and say what you want to say. At the end of the day, if you're Muslim and
Right.
you now move to a Christian country, or you move to a country where there's atheists and they believe in eating pork, and then you say, oh, well, because everybody's eating pork around me, I can't, I gotta eat it because it's around me all the time. No,
Right.
you're supposed to persevere. Your culture, your values, your morals, your ethics, your integrity, all those things are supposed to persevere in spite of what you're surrounded by. And I think the excuse and the lack of accountability, it's easier to just submit to a bigger force or more people who are more around. When I was a kid, my parents cooked Jamaican food. So when
Right.
I was taking my lunch to school, I always had to go to the teacher's line and warm my food up. I'm warming up jerk chicken, curry chicken,
Right.
rice and peas. I'm smelling up the whole fish. I got red snapper, the whole school they're like, man, what the hell is that smell?
Right.
And so I'm sitting next to kids who had what? They had Lunchables. They had processed food. They had fruit roll-ups in their lunch. They had fruit snacks. I remember this like it was yesterday. They had Twinkies, right? Ho-Hos.
Right.
And so they had dessert for lunch. I had a meal that was prepared the night before, right? Leftovers.
Right.
And I'm sitting next to them. I'm eating rice. I'm eating cabbage. I'm eating steamed fish. And they're eating Lunchables. They're eating I remember when this Lunchable came out, it was like the Lunchable pizza. They're eating cold ass bread, like flour, and they're putting tomato sauce squeezing out of a bag, and they put these sausage things with a little sprinkle of cheese, and it came with like one candy. And I used to look at it and be so envious. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm the only kid that doesn't have a Lunchable. So I'm gonna go to my mom and I come home and say, Mom, listen, I don't want that. I don't want the food in a damn brown paper bag anymore. I want to feel this. I didn't understand. Right? I didn't understand. And so this is what ends up happening. Your culture becomes tested. Your morals and values are tested when it's pinned against others who do not share the same values that you share. And this is where the conflict happens with us as a people, is because we are told that we need to live and act a certain way. What ends up happening, we end up coming across people who are doing the opposite, and then we want to assimilate, and that is the issue. And then we feel a sense of like a lack of belonging. We want to belong and be accepted because of the lack of pride that we have for what we already do have. So when we talk about, not to get off topic,
you're good.
Yeah, the women's, men struggling with finding quality. I would also, and we're talking about men, so we're gonna stick with the men.
Right.
It's true. I had the same struggles as well, and I think the challenges are, again, if I'm taught a certain way, I'm very I was raised conservative.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised with certain values and things like that. So, and my mom and my father taught me what to look for in a mate and how to conduct myself. The problem is, if I step outside my house and I look to the left and the right, and there's 10 homes to the left, there's 10 homes to the right, and each one of those homes, there's a Black family in there. The likelihood that we all share the same values and the same morals and the same ideas of relationships and family building and group economics is highly unlikely. And that's the issue. So if I look across the street and there's 10 homes across the street from me, and there's 10 daughters that live and there's a daughter that lives in each one of those homes. The reality is each one of those girls are raised differently with different set of rules, views on relationships, views on how to conduct themselves in said relationship. So now what we find ourselves doing as men and women is that we step outside and we're looking to find someone that we match with, because there is no central, universal Black culture that we all agree on, right? And so I was taught, you come in the house, you take your shoes off.
Right.
I go to someone else's house, you can walk all through their damn house with your shoes on. You can put your feet up on their sofa. You can do that. You can't do that at my house.
You can't do that in my house.
Yeah, you can't come to my house and my family's around and you don't greet them. You don't respectfully greet everybody. You don't come in my house and open the fridge without permission, right? But what happens is, I remember having friends where they weren't taught that. It doesn't make it right or wrong. This is not an argument about right or wrong. Right. It's about what's acceptable cultural practices. So when we talk about what's acceptable, when I used to date, I would go and say, hey, I'm picking you up. I have to go to the door. I have to introduce myself to your parents, right? And let them know who I am. That's how I was taught. That's how I was raised. Right. You know, I remember meeting young girls and they're like, oh, I don't want you to come up there. Let's just go meet me down one house down. I'll just run outside. I said, no, I can't do that. Right. You know, they need to know who I am. So where does that come from? So, you know, if I'm walking with you down the street, I make sure that you're on the opposite side of the street. You know, you're not walking near the sidewalk close to the street. You're walking on the inside. And so, you know, I make sure I grab the door. These are things that every man is not taught that. And even some women aren't taught that they're supposed to. So this is what I'm talking about. There's inconsistencies in the teachings on how men and women are supposed to interact with one another, what the expectation and respect should look like. And so because things are so confused and all over the place, you have women giving themselves to men that aren't worthy, that have not, that aren't on their purpose, that they have no business giving themselves to, you know, and that ends up ultimately having a negative impact on their life, right? You have women with attitudes that are deplorable. You have women that are insufferable to deal with, you know, and that's just the reality of it. And so I think what ends up happening is it makes a lot of them not desirable. And, you know, people are watching us, you know, they're watching us on social media. They're watching us on movies and television. They're watching us on the world stage, and people are they are generating or developing stereotypes behind what they see. Why? Because there's no pride in our image. We don't take pride in what we do and how we are represented. We don't realize that though I am me as an individual, I represent everybody as a collective. And because we have that disconnect, we come out here thinking that we speak for ourselves, when in fact, if I see a brother doing something stupid, he just lowered my value on a global and a national stage. And that's something that we have not figured out. You embarrass yourself, you embarrass me. It just is what it is. This is where these stereotypes are coming from. So unfortunately, Black women have a very bad stereotype attached to them. And we all know it's not all of them. But we know that the stereotype, there's a lot of truth to it. There's accuracy to the angry Black woman. You can say, you can argue why it's there or whether it's fair and men aren't doing this, men are doing, regardless, you're acting this way, it's not a good look. Regardless of why you're doing it, it's irrelevant to the world. The world doesn't care, right? Shout out to Kevin Samuels. He would always say the world doesn't owe you any understanding. And it's very true. You either make the adjustments to get the outcome you want, or you sit there and continue to complain. The reality is it's not attractive, you know, and if you want the outcomes you want, you got to fix it. And so I think one of the biggest challenges as men is if you are a man of quality, I don't speak to any of that high value stuff. I just
Right,
speak
right, 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 right.
You know, if you're a quality man, you are looking for a quality woman. And often what's happening is it's very hard for both sides to find quality. And I would say I've dated plenty of quality women who had deplorable attitudes. They had a personality and characteristics that were insufferable, you know, and because of that, they don't make good partners, you know. And so at the end of the day, we can talk about, is a woman valuable? Absolutely. You can be valuable, you have a good job, you're an adult, you know, but at the end of the day, there are characteristics and traits that men are specifically looking for that we find to be qualities that make a woman marriageable. And so regardless of what women think or what they believe, if you don't have set traits and if you're not giving men what they're asking for, then men aren't going to give you marriage. It's just that simple. And I think, you know, it's been a hard pill for a lot of women to swallow because they see themselves as being successful in life. They do well for themselves, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But then when it comes to, are you successful at being a partner? You know, you're successful at everything, but are you successful are you successful at being a are you successful?
Because it keeps jumping.
It does. It's annoying. There's a way to, but the idea is, are you successful at being a partner to a man? And so I think that's where a lot of the challenges come from, because at the end of the day, I say this, and this is the reality of it, and it's just basically how we're designed. You know, you have to take it up with God. You know, the reality is that men don't really ask for much, you know, don't really ask for much. And or I would say this even differently. What men ask for, it doesn't cost women anything, right? But what women ask for, it costs men everything, right? We're talking financially, we're talking physical, right? To provide, to protect, you know. But what men are asking for doesn't cost women anything. You know, we're talking what? You know, adjust the weight, be mindful of the weight, your health, your wellness, your attitude, the way you speak to me, the way you know, the respect. That doesn't cost anything to make those changes. Hey, I don't like these long ass eyelashes that are coming off of your skull. You know, I don't like all the makeup. I don't like the fake body. I don't like that you're overweight. It's not attractive to me, right? I don't like the fake hair. You know, men accept these things because we don't have a choice, right? A lot of times we have to just deal. A lot of the average guys just dealing with it. But if you ask them, they don't really care for a lot of that stuff, you know? And so, you know, what men are asking of women, of our women, respectfully, it doesn't cost women anything to fix. It doesn't cost them anything to change, right? A lot of these things are character issues, right? Personality traits that we're asking adjustments on. But what women are asking of men costs men money, it costs them time, it costs them resources. And so it's weird. And what ends up happening, men are recognizing, waking up to the idea that, hey, listen, everything I ask you doesn't cost you anything. And you don't even want to do that, right? It's free and you don't want to do it, you know? And things you ask from me cost me everything. And I have to do it in order to get some form of cooperation from you. And that's where a lot of the dynamics are starting to shift, where men are saying, well, you know what? I throw my hands up. I tell men all the time, you know, when we have these conversations, go where you're appreciated. You know, I don't ever tell where it don't matter who it is, you know, deal with a woman that appreciates you, loves you, and respects you for the man that you are, not the man that she feels like you should be. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. I don't waste my time on women who don't see my value. If you don't see it because I'm only 5'10", I'm not 6, whatever, that's fine. That's fine. It doesn't. I laugh, I smile, and I say, you know, hey, I wish you the best of luck. And I keep it moving. So I think, and I'm in this point. I think the problem is, unfortunately, too many of our women are living in a false sense of reality. And what ends up happening is they are interpreting things based on their view on what's valuable. And that's where the disconnect is. You know, and when you look at the world through a twisted sense or twisted perspective, you're going to maneuver a certain way based on how you interpret the situation, the way you interpret life, because, you know, I would say the best way to look at it is what you believe to be true isn't necessarily true. your perception is your reality. A lot of times what I've noticed is women have a very unrealistic perception or perspective of relationships and of marriage. And because of that, it's become their reality. And then when they finally wake up from that, it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. And they find themselves behind the 8 ball. And when they realize and recognize it, it's a lot of times, all the times, a little too late. And it's unfortunate. And the reason why we've gotten to this point, unfortunately, is because they weren't taught properly, right? This all goes back to, what is the culture saying? How is the culture teaching our women about relationships, partnerships, marriage, how to conduct themselves as women, and also how to be a woman of value to a man that is deserving of their hand, right? And so, or deserving to give their hand in a sense. So I think that is one of the biggest issues, is who is teaching, who is passing on the knowledge. And then once you go back to the source, you then recognize why we have the problem.
Awesome. What about the male side? Be a devil's advocate.
All right, let's do it.
You
know you got to do it.
but you know, I'm gonna get paid for this one. But let's be the equal opportunists.
Let's do it.
I do know men who are successful, such as yourself. I don't go for the high value, because when that terminology of 6 figures, I was like, my parents was making that in the 80s, so I don't know conceptually what the heck y'all talking about. The average brother. One of the things that I always see is, and again, I do it all the time. Any brother I see, especially a young brother, I don't care if he's the waiter, clean up table guy. Right. I'm always making sure they got a tip. I'm always making sure they're spoken to. They feel like, hey, you're the owner of this business, and I want you to know that I respect you regardless of what you do. But then I see those brothers where it's like, dude, you got to get it together. I mean, you can't be sitting up in this woman's house. She got the Section 8. You up here playing big man. You're trying to talk for men. Like this something isn't adding up. You know, there's a certain group where, you know, I'm going, you guys are saying this, but your actions are saying something totally different. You claiming this, but you're spending 20 hours online doing this. I don't see how I don't see how things is moving. You're arguing about these type of women, but if we wasn't paying for OnlyFans, there would be no OnlyFans. I'm gonna call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
You can't complain about an OnlyFans, but we're the financial backers of OnlyFans.
Correct.
You can't complain about women in the space, and I'm not pocket watching, but I'm being 100. You're sitting around arguing about women in the space, but y'all throwing up $50, $100 every time they turn on their camera. But then you barely give $2 to a male who's trying to advocate for you. Then the third one is, and this to me is the biggest mic drop. And this is something that I said I'll do on the latter interview. You're Jamaican. Mm-hmm. They'll cuss you out for being Jamaican. They'll cuss JB out for being Haitian. They'll cuss Chaotic Truth for being Nigerian. They paying big dollars to other content creators of the opposite sex, and they both happen to be Jamaican. And I'm not saying nothing negative about their platform, nothing, because I've interviewed with both of them, and they both on my platform. What I'm pointing out is the hypocrisy. I'm not pointing out, oh, females shouldn't be content creators. I'm not saying that, because if you can get on, turn on the mic and advocate for men, hey, I'm all 100% down with you. I don't have a dog in that fight. I don't believe that every female content creator should not be advocating or talking for men or speaking on men's issues. I don't advocate that. What I'm arguing is some of the hypocrisy of it. Like, don't sit up there and cuss you out because you're Jamaican and say you can't speak on black issues, but then the same Jamaican, you funneling $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 that direction. So I bring that question to: am I seeing wrong when I'm not seeing what I would define as standing in your square, but more or less integrity? Or is that too far of a stretch of just philosophical thought?
No, I think honestly, I think you brought up a lot of good valid points, and I try to take notes so I know what to respond to. Because you covered a lot. Let me work backwards into the last
Okay.
point you made. People don't in this space. You have a lot of men that are hurt. They're not happy because they've been played, they've been manipulated, they've been abused emotionally by women, and so you have a lot of good brothers in this space who have. I myself have history of being abused emotionally by a woman, right? And so what I mean by that is like you giving your heart to someone and they took
Mhm.
advantage of it. You know, you thought women were perfect, you thought they never would lie, and then you find out that she's getting clapped up by somebody else that you knew, right?
Right.
I myself has experienced that at a young age and learned at a young age that women lie, women can't be trusted, they could be just as deceitful as anybody else. They're humans, right?
Hmm.
They're not special, they're human.
Right.
And so they're not above making mistakes. And but as a young man, you're taught that women are these angels, essentially, that they're these perfect creatures, and it's false. You know, it's absolutely false. And I think some men recognize early, some men recognize later in life. Some men can't handle being woken up out the matrix. They lose their mind, and sometimes you see this and there's no justification for it. You see this through men using violence to get some type of a justice, some emotional justice. They end up using violence to make themselves feel better.
Right.
You see that happen a lot with, and this is where some of these domestic cases come from that I've dealt with and investigated on my own. Is I show up at the doorstep of the house, and I got the man sitting there waiting to be arrested. And when I'm asking him what's going on, well, I came home and there was another guy, blowing her back out, and so I stabbed him and stabbed her. So, and I'm like, well, damn. Now, obviously, that's wrong, and obviously,
Right.
that's not what you should be doing, and that's not okay to assault anybody because you couldn't handle the emotional, that emotional distress that you went under, and kind of fell into that crime of passion per se. But granted, there's no justification in it. But this is also one of the things that also happens sometimes, and women do it too, right? It's
Right.
not saying it's an either or thing, but just as an
Right.
example. Um, so what you have is this emotional rage and frustration that a lot of men are facing, and they never had an advocate. They never had anybody be able to talk and speak out against these things and really support and tell the story of men who've been hurt by women, who've been
Hmm.
taken advantage of by women, who've been taken advantage of by the legal system, the criminal justice system, law
Hmm.
enforcement, all because women play, they might exaggerate, they might do whatever. So no one has ever spoken up. I mean, you didn't really, as men, we never had that. So now we have that, and we have it in abundance now on YouTube. And so
Right.
what you see now is a lot of men who had these who've been hurt for centuries,
Right. Right.
decades.
Right.
Finally, they're up, they're 40, they're 50, they're 60. Now they finally got a voice. They finally got a voice, and they can now add on to, hey, when I got divorced, she took everything, and listen, fellas, run for the hills. Never do
Hmm.
this. And now they're starting to give advice from an emotional, sometimes from a hurt place, and it lacks context. So when you're hurt and you've been hurt, sometimes you give bad advice, and sometimes you get in an echo chamber of other men who've been hurt, other people who've been hurt, and you're sharing war stories about how this woman did this. And yeah, there's a good chance you picked wrong. You picked wrong. You didn't pick properly. You were chasing after the body and not the brains, whatever it might have been. You weren't picking for the right woman because no one
Hmm.
taught you how to pick for a right woman, right? So no one talks about how men are making bad decisions and choosing bad women. You fell in love with the stripper. I'm in love with a stripper.
Right.
Right? And then
Right.
you mad when you came home and she's getting blown out by 3 other guys.
Right.
And so, or she's pregnant and the kid come out with features that don't look like yours, and you're
Right.
shocked. You're like, oh, how could this happen, sir? She's a prostitute. And so
Mhm.
this is the weird thing that always blows my mind when it comes to men complaining about women. And you look at the women that they pick, and we're talking about men of quality, right? We're talking
Right.
about quality men. We're not talking about the our bottom feeder,
Right.
members of the community, right? They gonna do what they want to do anyways. We're talking about quality men who got themselves together, that whatever. Then and they're picking the wrong women. They're not picking women that are have domesticated values, that want to be wives sometimes, and sometimes they are, and then sometimes those women are stepping out and they're cheating, they're doing whatever, right? And
but
so
overall, I agree with you, right?
Correct. And so what ends up happening is that you want to go into a space where people agree with you. You want to go where you're being validated. And so what ends up happening, it feels good when someone is acknowledging your pain. It feels good when someone is acknowledging you and acknowledging the trauma, because that's what it is. It's relationship trauma that you went through. So when I go in these spaces, and I've been on these channels and panels and things before and had these conversations, a lot of times, whether it's all women's panels or all men's panel, at the end of the day, what I see on both sides is trauma. I see people who have been broken, who never gotten healed from a bad relationship. I look at, I think back of my bad relationships and how it took a long time for me to get over. If you're not careful, you can become a menace to the relationship community, based on your past hurt, you suffering from this PTSD like symptoms, whereas you don't trust anymore and things like that. You think, all women are going to be the same, or all men are going to be the same. And so what happens with men, now you have an advocate, you have a woman who is now, in some cases, sometimes you have a woman who is genuine in her approach, advocating, and you have some women who aren't genuine and they're making money and they're finessing the men off of their emotional pain.
Right.
And that is, we have the Derek Jacksons, right? We have the female Derek Jacksons within this space on social media. And granted, I think it's a business. It's a very sad business if that's why you're doing it. If you're doing it just to make money, you're making money off of someone else's trauma.
Right.
But there are people who are legitimately speaking out against the dysfunction in our community, the dysfunction of some of the behaviors that Black women display, and they are speaking out against it. And again, it is something where you are getting paid for the effort and the research that you're doing. I personally don't see anything wrong with it, whether you are doing it for the wrong reasons or the right reasons.
Right.
My thing is, I don't have an issue with the people who are doing the work. I have an issue who are falling for messages that might be inaccurate, messages that are false, messages that are used specifically to manipulate men and women out of their pocket, i.e. a Derek Jackson, right? Someone who is really just talking lies and really trying to pander in order to make money. And so what they're doing is ultimately becoming more of an issue, causing more of a problem, and making the situation worse. So I can see it. I can look at the content or the messages, the information that the person is putting out, and based on that, I can ascertain whether or not they are speaking accurate or they're just speaking to galvanize more people in order to make more money. Because at the end of the day, if you are not holding both sides accountable, you're not being genuine and you're being disingenuous. And so that's how I look at it, because at the end of the day, men and women are yin and yang. And this problem cannot be created without one or the other, right? This is a cyclical issue, right? And this thing is spinning on an infinity loop. Someone has to step out and make the correction in order for it to work. It requires both of us. A woman is not solely responsible. A man is not solely responsible. The responsibility falls on both of us to fix the issue. Both of us are coming with a problem that's creating this infinity loop. Why we keep going back over it over and over and over again. And what's happening now is that people are trying to put the responsibility on women to fix, and women are putting the responsibility on men to fix. No one is saying that we have to come together and fix it together. That is the only way. Blaming each other is counterproductive. We have to come to the table sincerely and with genuine hearts and open minds and say, this is what's going on with the men, this is what's going on with the women, and understanding how we got here, how we both play a role in the outcomes and the transition of this influence, and then coming together and repairing that, and then setting up something to ensure that we do not fall back into the trap that we were put in. And so a lot of people don't know that there's an economic benefit to our dysfunction. We cannot gain power by being divided. We can't gain economic or political power by being divided. And the first thing you destroy and you break is the home. So if you can prevent everything from the devil wanted to prevent, if we look at it from a standpoint, the devil didn't want Jesus to be born, right?
Right.
You can stop the birth of that man, and a lot of things, right, will work out in his favor. So what do they look at when you want to destroy the power of a community, of a group? What do? You prevent the conception, prevent them from coming together. And so if you can keep them fighting one another, they'll never tap into their power. If they can't tap into that power, they can't build a community. If they can't build a community, they can't have a village. And without a village, you have nothing. And so this is why a lot of the issues are constantly repeating itself. And so if we don't get past the his fault, her fault argument, discussion that's going on YouTube, and people not sitting down talking about solutions, how we can repair the next children that are coming up, how do we get that negative viewpoint and perspective outside of them, changing the culture, shifting the dynamic between the relationships, learning to respect one another and coming together. The culture has to evolve with the times. So we gotta sprinkle a little modern with a whole lot of tradition, because at the end of the day, it is modern times. You know, we're not out here hunting and gathering. So you have to factor that in a real world scenario. The real world scenario is that women are independent. They are independent, but they should not be independent from their man. You get what I'm saying? And so that is where that's right. And so that's where the confusion is coming from, where not only are they independent as they should be, they're independent from seeing value of being, I guess you would say, connected to one another. And so that's the issue when you have people who have not been taught properly, and also not taught on the power and the value of family and relationship. You know, choosing a partner as a man and as a woman is probably the most important thing you can do in your entire life. The most important investment that you make in life today is the partner that you choose. That can bring substantial wealth, it can bring success, and it can also increase your wellness in life. Choosing wrong and picking wrong could utterly destroy your life, destroy your legacy, and ruin any type of economic value that you would have or grow. Right now, I'm 36. And so, you know, I am essentially not married. Essentially, you can say I'm single. And you think about people who've gotten together in their early 20s, and they're together at 24, 25, because they were taught the value of relationship and the value and importance of marriage and coming together, having a unity, creating that bond. The purpose is to really conquer life together. And again, if you're conquering life as a team, right? You're sharing expenses, you're living together, you're building wealth. I make 60,000, my wife is making 60,000, and what happens? We have 120,000 in this house with no children yet. And so you think about what we're able to build and create at the age of 25 and 26. Here I am, you fast forward 10 years later, you talk about all that wealth that I could not accumulate by myself, right? Essentially. So you have women who are 30, 35 by themselves. All the wealth they created and generated is something they've done on an individual basis. We're talking about the average woman. Right. The average man, right? And so what's happening is you're talking about 10 years, 15 years of missed opportunity to build wealth together. Why? This is for us to conquer life together. So right now, too many of us, you know, a lot of men I don't have kids yet. Can't find a worthy soil to put the seed in, right? And so again, there's a lot of men that don't have children, you know, and we're building our own nest egg, we're building our own wealth, but I could have built so much more if I had a suitable partner, right? At an early age, you know. But again, the men and women are not being groomed with that mentality because it's not part of our culture. There's an African tribe. There's an African, I can't remember what country in Africa it is. I can't off the top of my head, but I remember reading about them, and they were talking about how the women are groomed to, and in a lot of these, and it's a lot of cultures like this, they're actually groomed to please and take care of the man. Like, they're taught this by the women. The women could make a concerted effort how to teach them how to be sexually pleasurable, how to teach them how to be woman, woman of value to a man. Like, they're being taught this. This is a skill set. And so when you look at what we're doing here, these things are not being taught. Men aren't being taught this. And so, to your point earlier, when you talk about men are just kind of lounging around, not doing nothing, of course, because nothing is asked of them, right? Again, we're not in this hunter-gathering age anymore. And so men are getting women without having to be or living a purposeful life. Back in the day, in order to achieve and obtain a woman, you had to have a purpose. You had to be living a purpose. You had to be actively pursuing goals. You had to have yourself in order. You had to have a foundation in order for a woman to be attracted to you and feel safe, because a woman could not survive if you were not someone who had structure and discipline. Well, in this day and age, men with no structure, with no discipline, no purpose, no value, they get women just as easily as men who have those things. And so there is no motivation for men. Unfortunately, one would argue that women provide a great sex and women provide a great motivation for those things. A man wouldn't dare have a child, recklessly have a child, if he was unable to provide for that child. It brought shame, and it was disrespectful to your family and her family. Now those things don't exist anymore. So now people are comfortable having children. They're comfortable not working. They're comfortable being below average, because women aren't demanding those things. Women aren't abstaining themselves from men who aren't on their purpose. Honestly, a lot of the women and essentially have created the men that they seek today.
I agree. I agree. It's funny because I had to smile. Sometimes that's the fog in my own head, meaning the men in my family, there was no way in the world I can have a child, whether I was with the mother or not. And I just walked away. I talked about child support. That just was not conceptual.
Right.
Wasn't an option. Right. That wasn't an option. And I'll tell you another funny story. I had called my female cousin. And I said, I want you to look at this YouTuber. Right. And the YouTuber is Danica Marie. I said, go look at this YouTuber. And I said, who does she remind you of? So she gets online. Now, remind you, my cousin ain't no YouTuber type person. She looks at her, she goes, you try to say that's me? I'm like, yeah, that's you. I said, all that game she teaching, what you were teaching me back in the day. But it allowed me to tell my cousin how much I appreciate her, because, she didn't teach me to be in the bathroom with the girls. You know what I'm saying? We didn't do no makeup and all this. We didn't do none of that stuff. It was, let me teach you the game that women play. See, I was learning the game in junior high school.
Right.
And in high school by a female cousin. Now, remind you, I was mostly raised by a lot of men, but I also had a set of female cousins too. So they was the ones that instilled, protection. So if they got in trouble, that was me and my boys that had to go and fight. So, but she also taught me game. I knew back then. So a lot of stuff, it hurts because it's like, how do I teach what I was taught as a child? To a group of men that is like, okay, I don't want to hear it unless you telling me either. Like I tell them all the time, if you having trouble getting the box in this cycle, something wrong with you. Something wrong with you. It's too easy. When I was going to school, you're right. You had to have something. Even if you were living with your parents, you had to have something. And this is New York. I said, and even back then, even if you knew the easy women, you still had to treat her as a woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't something you boasted. You may have known that was the, as they would say on YouTube, that was the 304. But even the 304, you couldn't just do it and then go run out in the street. She surely wasn't going to be bragging and boasting about it. But, so it's like, there's nothing new under the sun. But then you sit there and as for me, I struggle because it's like, Dag, I had all of this. And you're right. Sometimes you don't appreciate what you got until you see it somewhere else.